Speak remotely were available until 5 p.m. Central Standard Time yesterday. Members of the public will speak under agenda item 3, and those members of the public joining remotely will remain in the Zoom meeting waiting room until it is their turn to speak. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be made available to the public. At this time, I call on our Executive Director, Trey Apfel, for roll call.
Director Baruch.
Here.
Director Benish.
Here.
Director Bullard.
Here.
Director Cantu.
Here.
Director Clark.
Here.
Director Gibson.
Here.
Director Harrison.
Here.
Director Huddleston.
Here.
Director Kroger has an excused absence. Senior Justice Learman has an excused absence. And Nina Hessu is here on her behalf. Director McDonald.
Here.
Director Naylor.
Here.
Director Pratt.
Here.
Director Ritter.
Here.
Director Smith.
Here.
Director Tisdale.
Here.
Director Toby.
Here.
Director Wooten.
Here.
Justice Young has an excused absence. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Executive Director Apfel. At this time, we would like to welcome any members of the public who have signed up to speak. Any member of the public joining us in person who wishes to speak should sign a blue sign-in card and return it to the staff. If there's a specific topic you would like to speak on or agenda item, please list that on the card. If any members of the public have signed up to speak remotely, you will remain in the Zoom waiting room until it is your turn to speak, and I will address you to indicate when you may begin. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to speak, and we will notify you when it's your time is up. I don't see any members of the public here to speak, and there's none on Zoom. So at this time, the public comment period is now closed. During the remainder of the meeting, if there are board members or staff who wish to speak, please approach the podium and I will let you know when it's your turn to speak. At this time, I'm going to call on Executive Director Trey Apfel for his report.
Good morning again. I want to update you on some happenings with the State Bar. This month, we'll continue our tradition of producing a free CLE seminar the day before our quarterly board meeting in our host city. The updates for solo practitioners and small firms seminar will take place from 2 to 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, January 25th at the Hilton Palacio del Rio in San Antonio. Topics for that seminar include a State Bar update, legislative updates on family law and litigation, a tutorial on generative AI, and an update on the United States Supreme Court. And I want to thank our speakers in advance of that, including President Tisdale, Kimberly Naylor, Cade Browning, Joshua Weaver, Chad Baruch, and Kenan Wooten for their participation. We'll be in Dallas this year for the 2024 State Bar Annual Meeting. The meeting is scheduled for June 20 through 21 at the Hilton Anatole. Courtney Barksdale Perez and Jerry Alexander are co-chairs of this year's annual meeting committee. If you're interested in a sponsorship, there is a handout in your materials in Board Effect that lists the different law firm and corporate sponsorship levels. I'm very pleased to report that we already have 2 keynote speakers confirmed for the Bar Leaders Recognition Luncheon on June 20th. We will hear from Camille Vasquez. She is a California attorney known for representing actor Johnny Depp in the defamation case he brought against his ex-wife, Amber Heard. For the general session luncheon on June 21st, we are honored to have Judge Irma Correa Ramirez. Judge Ramirez is a former board member who was recently confirmed by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals after previously serving as a federal magistrate judge. We are thrilled to have both of these speakers on the meeting agenda. The annual meeting committee is hard at work on lining up an additional keynote speaker for our bench bar breakfast. And then lastly, the 2023-2024 volunteer State Bar volunteer and staff guide is now complete. Directors received a digital version of this by email on November the 7th, and it is available to read on the State Bar website under the heading News and Publications. This obviously is a useful resource to understand the many boards, committees, sections, and other arms of the State Bar and related entities. So please take some time to read through it. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Executive Director Apfel. Are there any comments from directors? Seeing none, I'll go into my report. I've been busy since the last time we met. I have spoken at approximately 25 different events, including local bars in Johnson County, Midland County, Smith County, Brazos County, Victoria County, the Houston Bar Association Family Law, and the Nacogdoches Bar. I attended the Southern Conference of Bar Presidents and spoke at the Paralegal Day in Dallas. I attended the Dallas Bar Association Foundation luncheon that honored Frank Stevenson. I presented a presidential commendation to the Dallas Bar celebrating its 150th year. I attended the Texas Access to Justice Committee meeting on Access to Legal Services Working Groups report and their recommendations meeting. And I represented the State Bar at several other meetings, such as the TMCP, the New Lawyer Induction, Access to Justice Champions of Justice Gala, the TYLA board meeting in Lubbock. President Pratt, it was a great meeting, and thanks for hosting in Lubbock. The HBA Harvest Celebration and the Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid Evening of Gratitude. That's just a little sprinkling of what I did. I won't list them all, but I've been very busy representing the bar these past couple of months. I want to update you on a couple of things. On one, the AI task force that was put into place. The task force responsible for AI in the law, or TRAIL for short, met on December 7th to discuss their issues that they have identified surrounding generative AI and its use of practice in the law. The task force has submitted an interim report that's included in your materials. This interim report outlines the issues the task force has identified over the past few months and includes some potential recommendations that are under consideration. Among the many potential recommendations that are under consideration, they're looking at recommend that the State Bar undertake initiatives to provide lawyers with training on AI, its risks, and best practices for its use. These initiatives could include CLE courses, articles, and web resources. Recommending that the State Bar provide information about the responsible use of AI to the public. Recommending that the MCLE committee consider including training on generative AI as a mandatory requirement. Recommending that the State Bar investigate the development of AI tools specific to the practice of law and consider how those tools could be made available to improve the practice of law in Texas. And recommending that the State Bar monitor AI and its use in legal practice on an ongoing basis. Again, those are just a few. Their entire report is in your materials, so you can read that. As the task force examined the potential risks and benefits of AI in the legal profession, it became apparent to them that issues involving other groups, such as law schools, the courts, legal regulators, to name a few, could be impacted. So the task force is planning to invite other stakeholders in those areas to an AI summit the spring of 2024, this year, to continue the discussion of the issues that the task force has identified and further consider the recommendations that have been proposed. The schedule and structure of the AI Summit was the subject of the task force's most recent meeting on January 4th. The task force expects to give a brief report of the summit to this board of directors in April and a more detailed written report thereafter. Senior Justice Lehrman has asked that the task force coordinate its efforts with the court, which we have agreed to do so, of course. She was kind enough to attend the task force's meeting on January 4th to discuss the issues of AI that are of interest to the court. Now on to the vacation letter. Something else that I was asking the State Bar to look at is that vacation letter portal. The Law Practice Management Committee has formed a subcommittee, and it's been investigating how different courts across the state are handling vacation letters. The subcommittee has discovered that there's a variation among different courts between different types of practice. Some courts have already established an online system for vacation letters, while others have no guidelines whatsoever about their vacation letters. The committee and staff continue to investigate all of the possible solutions, and I look forward to updating you on their progress. Are there any questions or comments from directors? Yes, Director Gibson.
The only thing I wanted to point out was something I learned in connection with work I'm doing for the Goodwill Industries Board of Directors with regard to, the phishing that goes on when people try to pretend to be somebody that encourages somebody to make a wire. You ought to check your insurance policies, and we ought to ask our lawyers to check their insurance policies, because that is excluded from coverage. So I think I personally felt like if something bad happened, even though I'm in a really large law firm, I felt like if something bad happened, there would be insurance coverage to provide coverage, but there is not. The insurance companies have excluded coverage for that kind of social exclusion. So you ought to check your own policy, and we ought to make our lawyers aware of the fact that they probably are not covered for any losses they experience.
Thank you, Director Gibson. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, at this point, we'll consider and discuss the approval of the minutes of the September 7th, 2023 Executive Committee meeting. I need a motion to approve the September 7th, 2023 minutes. Director Tobey approved. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Naylor seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sylvia Brunda Firth to discuss the Building Planning Special Committee. Ms. Firth?
Thank you, President Tisdale. And Happy New Year, everyone. It's great to see you all. We've got some exciting developments to report on the 1415 Lavaca building. I think most of you all know that it's a major milestone was going to be getting the proposed design approved by the Austin Historical Landmark Commission. The approval from the commission was needed to move forward with the project. And our intention was to show the commission that we are dedicated to preserving the historical nature of the original building while developing additional space for an education and conference center. The initial step was getting feedback from the city's Architectural Review Committee, a subcommittee of the Historic Landmark Commission. And based on their feedback, some minor changes were made to the original design. And we'd like to show that to you now. So if you could put up that slide. So it looks a little bit different. Changes included reducing some of the light fixtures on the exterior of the building, using a flat roof instead of a slanted roof, using a smaller awning on the Lavaca Street entrance, and reducing the size of the mullions, which is a design feature on the windows. Those changes were done so that the new structure would not visibly overpower the historic part of the building. But as you can see, it did nothing to negatively affect the impact of that beautiful design. So we can go ahead and take that down. And we're pleased to report that the Historic Landmark Commission approved the design of the building at their meeting on December 13th. So a great holiday present. This is a tremendous accomplishment and one that took many hours of preparation and legwork. And we're extremely excited to have this step completed and want to thank all of the staff members and the consultants that played a role in the process. But I also want to really thank August Harris for his assistance in this phase of the project. For those of you who don't know, August is a real rock star in the historic preservation world in Austin, and he served on numerous leadership positions in the city and is well known throughout the community. He gave a presentation in support of the project to the commission and also helped us strategize about the best way to present the design. So we owe a great deal of gratitude to August for his assistance on this building project. We're very lucky to have him as a resource. The next steps include working with the construction manager at risk, or the CMAR, you'll hear us call it that, to get this initial cost estimate of the schematic design, which will give us an updated estimate of the construction costs to complete the building. Over the next several months, as we complete additional work in the design development phase, the CMAR will give us additional estimates as we further develop the design. Down the road, the CMAR will bid the cost of the project and set what we call a guaranteed maximum price, a GMP, for the project. And of course, we have the flexibility to not begin construction until we have progressed with our fundraising, which is a nice segue into the topic. Staff has been working on a tax-deductible fundraising mechanism that includes some legal details that will be covered by our legal counsel a little later in the meeting. Additionally, staff has continued working with our fundraising consultant, FBC Generosity Experts, to put together a plan for the fundraising. There are many steps necessary to develop and implement a comprehensive capital campaign plan, and we will have more information in the future about this process. In the meantime, we will continue to push pre-construction activities forward while we begin to ramp up for fundraising. For example, the site permit was submitted to the city in November, and we hope to receive approval. And my notes say February of 2025. I know they're really slow in Austin. I hope it's not going to take that long, but it's in the queue. There will be continued work on other elements of the design, including working with the Austin Green Building Program and the continued work with their consultants, landscaping professionals, and the interior design specialists, to name a few. Our plan is to have all the details completed, so when we raise the appropriate amount of funds, we can move forward with construction. And that concludes my report, unless anyone has questions.
Thank you, Ms. Firth. Are there any questions or comments from directors? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to hear from Kenan Wooten, the chair of the board, on her general report.
Happy New Year, everyone. This will be a short report. First, I want to let you know that at the next board meeting, we will remind directors to continue communicating with their constituents by presenting the State Bar updates in their respective districts and by pointing them to the PowerPoint presentations that are CELI accredited and readily available for use. In regard to community engagement, as a reminder to all of you, when I decided to run for chair, I set a goal to coordinate community engagement opportunities for board members who want to participate. At the last board meeting, we had so many board members generously donate children's books to courthouses in the Fort Worth area, which was great. And those will be used for children who come through the courthouse to read when they're there and also to take with them when they leave. Judge Wilkinson kindly came to our meeting to receive those donated books. And I don't know about all of you, but I was really touched by generosity that we all demonstrated. For the next board meeting, I'm going to ask board members who want to participate to donate stuffed animals as well as children's books, and those will go to the Bexar County Children's Courts. I want to thank Director Naylor for putting the stuffed animal idea in my brain, and also thank Director Morales II for assisting with coordinating with those judges of the children's courts in the area. We hope to have at least one, maybe more of them come to our board meeting to receive the donations. Again, this is just for anybody who wants to participate. I hope those of you who are moved by this community engagement opportunity do participate. Finally, board chair race. The deadline has passed for second-year directors to submit their letters of intent to run for to be the next chair of the State Bar Board of Directors. We received letters of intent from two people, one Director Elizabeth or Liz Cantu, who's here with us today, and the other from Director Paul Stafford. The candidates will be announced officially at our January board meeting. They'll have an opportunity to make comments to the board at that time. Also at that meeting, as we've done in the past, we will consider as a board and approve the method of voting to be used for the chair election that will occur at the April meeting. And more specifically, that will be to decide whether the chair will be determined by a show of hands or by a ballot that's electronic or as needed, as we learned in the last time, written. So that is all I have, unless anybody has questions.
Thank you, Chair Wooten. Are there any questions or comments from directors? Seeing none, we're going to move into President-elect Steve Benish to give his report.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, welcome to Austin. Welcome to Cedar season, and Happy New Year. One of the responsibilities of the president-elect of the State Bar is to attend law-related events and there to bear the State Bar banner and to look, listen, and learn. Since the last quarterly meeting of the Board of Directors of State Bar of Texas, I've done a lot of that. Certainly not nearly so much as President Tisdale has, but the last quarter has been a busy schedule of events hosted by local bars, by affinity bars, by law-related organizations, bar-related organizations, and law schools. I will not bother to list them to you or for you. President Tisdale has mentioned many of them in her report. But I must tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed the process of having the opportunity to meet and speak with lawyers around the state and find out what makes them tick and what is of concern to them. And so it's been a useful process in this year as president-elect. I must, however, as much as I enjoyed it, report to you, sadly, one casualty. And that is that the little car, my little car, the Red Baron, that so faithfully bore me over tens of thousands of miles of Texas roads over the last 18 months, is kaput. But better my car than me. With that, let me go ahead and jump into the report from the Budget Committee. And for that, I will put on my glasses to look at my notes. The Budget Committee met on December 4th to review the proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25. After hearing from representatives of the State Bar divisions and departments, the committee approved the fiscal year 24-25 budget as has been presented to you. A 5-page copy of the proposed budget is included in your agenda packet, and if approved by the executive committee today and the board at our upcoming January meeting, then this proposed budget as presented in your packet will be published in the March 2024 issue of the Texas Bar Journal. Some of the highlights, and there are just a few of them that I'd like to walk through. First of all, the total budgeted general fund operating revenues is presented as $46,841,466, which is an increase of 4% from the prior year's adopted budget. The total budgeted general fund operating expenditures and transfers is $49,035,726, which is a 5.3% increase from the prior year's adopted budget. The budget for salaries is 5.8% higher than the salary budget for the current fiscal year, which is, of course, 23-24. And with regard to those salaries, the number of FTEs, full-time employees, budgeted for fiscal year 24-25 has been increased or will increase by 3 full-time positions. And that will bring the total FTEs to 274 and a half. I always question about the half for the general fund. This includes 2 new investigator positions, one for the Chief Disciplinary Counsel's office in Dallas and one for the CDC's office in Houston, and also 1 administrative assistant position for MCLE, for minimum continuing legal education. All right, so here are the recommendation of board commitments. There are actually 6 of them. I'm going to mention a couple of points before I list the 6 for you. As part of the budget process, the Budget Committee, at the recommendation of the Audit and Finance Committee, proposes designations and board commitments of the fund balance or equity of the State Bar during the budget process. For fiscal year 24-25, the total amount of new equity available for commitment by the State Bar Board is $4,942,564. This amount equals the net excess of the general fund as presented in the fiscal year 22-23 audited financial report. After hearing from the executive director of the State Bar and the State Bar staff, the Budget Committee plans to make these following 6 recommendations to the board at the January meeting for commitment of available funds. There is a summary write-up on each of these following 6 commitments in your packets in a document that's entitled Designation of Fund Balance. Number 1, to designate $787,477 to maintain the level of minimum reserves at 3.1 months of operating expenditures, or $12,705,083. This level of reserves is in line with the auditor's recommendations to have between 2 and 4 months of operating reserves available. Number two, to designate $2,120,319 in additional funds to assist in covering projected budget deficits. In prior budget years, the State Bar has designated approximately $941,000, $1.5 million, and $2.85 million to cover projected budgetary deficits for fiscal years 23, 24, and 25, respectively. With this budget, the fund balance will be reallocated to designate $0 to fiscal year 2023 since the funds were not needed, $1.5 million to fiscal year 2024, $2.2 million to fiscal year 2025, and $3.7 million to years thereafter. The total amount of fund balance designated to cover future budgetary shortfalls is $7,460,451. Table A in the designation of fund balance document includes the figures that I just described. In addition to the practice of reserving excess funds for a future year, the State Bar will be submitting proposals to the Budget Committee to address the long-term budgetary needs of the bar. Number three, to commit $500,000 to the State Bar's Technology Fund. This commitment will fully fund the development of a new MCLE reporting system and will cover future anticipated costs to replace IT equipment. Number four, to commit $1.5 million for the building fund. These funds are needed for the anticipated costs needed to develop the 1415 Lavaca building into an education and conference center. Anticipated costs include building plan and development costs, permits, and construction planning costs. Of this amount, of the $1.5 million, $500,000 will be reserved to cover the costs of planning a capital fundraising campaign. It's intended that the funds raised will offset the initial investment in the Lavaca building construction. Number five, to commit $8,832 to raise the balance maintained as a reserve for future State Bar initiatives to a level of $200,000. The balance in the State Bar initiatives account is not reflective of money to be spent in any given year, but it's maintained to ensure that money is set aside and available for future initiatives and to maintain prior presidential initiatives. Finally, number six, to commit $50,000 to increase funds held for future membership referendum votes. The board commitment would bring the total held for that purpose to $200,000 to cover travel, meeting, and implementation costs associated with future membership rules votes. Now, if you've been tallying the numbers in those six categories so far, you may notice that there is a discrepancy of $24,065. That represents the unspent board commitments for the most recent Southern Conference of Board Presidents. And that amount will be included into the total amounts available to make everything a zero out. The Budget Committee will be meeting again in the coming months to review the State Bar's financial trends and projections and to review the plans submitted by the bar in response to those projections. Unless there are any questions, and I will open it up or President Tisdale will open it up for any questions, I'll proceed with the motion to approve the budget. Any questions? Hearing none, then at this time, on behalf of the Budget Committee, I move the State Bar's proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25 be approved for presentation to the board and for publication in the March 2024 issue of the Texas Bar Journal. I guess now you take the question.
Thank you, President-elect Benish. Coming from a committee, there's no second that is needed. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Are there any questions or comments about the general report that President-elect Benish gave?
Sorry about your car.
Sorry about your car. Moving on, next we'll hear from immediate past President Lauren Gibson.
Good morning and Happy New Year. I'm delighted to report that I haven't been nearly as busy as either President Tisdale or President-elect Benish. The work that I have done has been focused on succession planning. You know, I feel like we really did a great job in letting people know about the importance of succession planning last year. But I was really discouraged when I realized that only 1,056 lawyers in the state of Texas have designated a custodian attorney. And that's really dismaying. You know, I thought, gosh, why is that? And I think the answer is none of us as lawyers do anything until we're forced to do it. But that's a question for a different day. I continue to tell people about how important it is to designate a custodian attorney, not for the purpose of taking over a lawyer's practice, but for returning the client's file to the client or to another lawyer of their choosing. I'm working with the Law Practice Management Committee and its chair, Greg Sampson, on making additional presentations, and we're working on a presentation that we will be giving to the judges in the state of Texas and to the Council of Chairs. In December, I also presented to the Texas Aggie Bar Association, TABA, if you haven't heard of them. They have a really robust program, and I spoke to them in December about succession planning. I also had the honor of being part of the Texas delegation that went to the Southern Conference of Bar Presidents in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. And as wonderful as that event was, it made me really proud of our Texas Bar team, our staff, and our leaders, because in October of 2022, the State Bar of Texas hosted the Southern Conference of Bar Presidents at the Omni Barton Creek Resort. And as President-elect Benish just reported, we didn't spend all of the budgeted money for that. We are returning $24,000 to the coffers of the State Bar of Texas. And I will say that the program that we put on in Texas should make us all very proud of our state, because it was an outstanding program. And it was really hard for any other bar association, no matter how hard they worked and planned, and no matter how nice the facility we were at was, to have the content and the quality of the programming that we provided to the attendees who attended during 2022 in Texas. I was also, I also attended the Texas Minority Council program in Houston in October. It made it really easy to attend since it was literally 5 minutes from my house, and also easy to attend, although not so easy for my husband. I attended the Harvest Celebration in November in Houston, and it was such a well-attended event. It was back to its more robust character after the pandemic, that my husband sat in traffic for an hour before he decided to go back home and not attend, because the ingress and the exit to the facility that it was hosted in was too jammed. But it was a fabulous event, and you should all be proud that President Tisdale was there, Executive Director Apfel was there, Steve Benish was there, a lot of our leaders were there, and I think that the bar has done a tremendous job in its outreach to our different communities, especially when they have big events like this. So I'll turn it over for the next agenda item. I will not be reporting on that. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Past President Gibson. Are there any questions or comments from directors? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Nominations and Elections Committee. Immediate Past President Gibson and Director Baruch. Sorry.
I'll be super brief. First of all, my compliments to President-elect Benish for working in Kaput. Such nachas on Oliver Clement. As you know, in September, the board selected two candidates, Denise Schofield of Houston, Santos Vargas of San Antonio. There are no petition candidates that we know of. They've done a great job, and we'll be getting into high gear here in the next few weeks. The bar will conduct a candidate forum for the president-elect race, tentatively scheduled for March 26th. Past President Gibson and I will moderate that forum here at the Law Center, and more information will be coming soon. There are 10 open director positions this year. The chart of those open positions is in your meeting materials. There's information available on how to run for director on the Board of Directors webpage. If you know anyone interested in running, please encourage them to do so and direct them to the website where they can get a petition form and other documents. Deadline to submit petitions is March 1st. You can also have them contact Ray Cantu, and he can get them situated to run in the upcoming election. The election, of course, will begin on April 1 and on April 30.
And please do everything you can to encourage folks to vote. And that concludes our report.
Thank you, Director Baruch. Are there any questions or comments from directors? Seeing none, we'll move on to Forrest Huddleston or Director Huddleston and the Audit and Finance Committee. Director Huddleston.
Thank you, President Tisdale, and Happy New Year to everybody. Glad to see all of you. Okay, pull this up real quick. Okay, so today I'm going to go over a couple of things. Out of the 148 pages in our materials, a cool 108 of them were mine. So, nobody's counting, except for the Audit and Finance Committee. So I know you guys have all read those, so thank you for bearing with us through all those materials. But I'm going to go over a few things today: financial reports and general review of financial statements. I'll go over an update on the internal audit and also the external audit, which is the financial audit. Starting with the financial statements and the general review of the financial statements. As of November 30th, 2023, the general fund had a net excess of revenues over expenditures and transfers of just over $2 million. And in your materials, Tracy and team do a really good job of showing this is what the actuals are, this is what the budget is, I mean, this is the difference between them. So that's what we're referring to right now. We budgeted a certain amount of revenues and expenditures. We had actuals come in, and overall we're net positive on both the revenues and the expenditures, totaling just over $2 million. General fund revenues for the period exceeded the budgeted revenues by about $2 million. Main positive revenue variants were from MCLE, Texas Bar, CLE, investments, and lawyer referral revenues exceeding budgeted revenues. Similarly, the fund expenditures were less than the budgeted expenditures by about $1 million. And so when you add those together, you get up to approximately 3.7, let me see, actual budget. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at Texas Bar, CLE. Just over $3 million for a total variance. So positive variance with revenues of about $2 million, positive variance with costs of about $1 million, totaling about $3 million above where we budgeted, which is a good thing for the bar. The full financial statements and the dashboard are available in your packet. One distinction that I really want to make just for this group, and that I kind of beat into the ground for the Audit and Finance Committee as well, is the fact that we have a May 31st year end. And I think that's really important because as you read through this, a lot of the time we talk about fiscal year 23 to 24. We've previously been talking about fiscal year 24 to 25. If we're talking about a certain fiscal year, it's the year that it ends. So if we're talking fiscal year 2024, which is what we're in right now, it's the year ending May 31st, 2024. And so if there's reference to a legislative year and there being additional revenues following the legislative year, it's important to know that distinction because a legislative year is typically ending in years ending in an odd number. And so fiscal years ending in an even number see an increase in revenues compared to the prior year. So just a quick important distinction that I want to just remind everybody of is May 31st year end on an annual basis. So quick update on the internal audit for 2024. Internal auditors provide independent and objective assurance and consulting services to the organization's governing body that's designed to add value to improve on the organization's operations. So we have a company come in, McConnell & Jones. We have a company come in and review our operations to be sure that we are abiding by internal controls so that we're actually reporting numbers correctly on our financial statements. So just a regrounding there, that's what the internal audit is as well. During fiscal year 22 and 23, Audit and Finance Committee selected, like I said, McConnell Jones to provide internal audit services. And we adopted a 5-year internal audit plan as presented by McConnell Jones. As part of that plan, audits scheduled for 2024 include communications and finance. And then on an annual basis, they do an internal audit over compliance with the Public Fund Investment Act. So that's an annual thing. The two additional things that they're auditing this year being, like I said, the communications and the finance division. Auditors are currently in field work, which means they're doing their audit right now. The results of this will be discussed during the April meetings, but historically we've had very positive feedback from our internal auditors, so we're expecting the same for this year. All right, taking it to the finish line with the financial audit, which is the external audit. We have Weaver come in every year and perform an audit of the numbers that we're actually reporting on the financial statements. They completed their 2022-23 financial audit, that being May 31st of 2023. Spent a couple of months after that auditing the financials, and ultimately we came out with a clean opinion, which is a really good testament to Tracy and her team that everything was what we call unmodified, which is the best opinion you can get. Also included in your packet is a report from Weaver that is titled "The Report to the Board of Directors." This is directly to us and is required by auditing standards, and its purpose is to summarize the required communications about the audit process. So if you guys have any questions over that as you're viewing it, feel free to come to me. That's kind of what my history and background is in. Tracy obviously is very well versed to answer those questions as well. But when we review that report, we go line by line, be sure that we agree with everything, and ultimately they present that to us. So take a look at that and let us know if you have any questions. And then finally, the auditors and CFO, Tracy, will present these financial statements and the audit report to the Audit and Finance Committee meeting, which is scheduled for January 18th tentatively. If accepted by the Audit and Finance Committee, the committee will make a recommendation to the board during the January 26th meeting regarding the acceptance of the financial audit reports. Unless there's any other questions, that concludes my report. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Director Huddleston. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to Director Toby and his report from DCAT Subcommittee.
Thank you, Madam President. Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you, Director Kellyanne Clark. Unlike Director Huddleston, we contributed 0 pages to your packet this time after more than 400 at the September Executive Committee meeting. Just a real quick refresher, we had a dozen rules and new rules, amended rules that have been approved by the board. The Supreme Court in October ordered a referendum that will take place concurrently with the director and officer elections. And so I look at this perhaps as an opportunity. At first, we wanted our own referendum time, separate and apart. But this is an opportunity, I think, to drive interest both ways, to the rules and also to the director and officer elections. And our job right now is pretty simple. We need to educate 112,000 lawyers in the next roughly 2.5 months what these rules are all about. And to do that, the bar is going to do a multi-pronged effort, obviously. There'll be materials in the Bar Journal, as we're used to looking at from time to time. There are going to be 3 Zoom CLE presentations in March that will be put together by the bar staff. For those of you who are affiliated with local bars, what a terrific opportunity to get us in front of local bars on a topic of interest to 112,000 lawyers in this state. So please reach out to your executive directors. Obviously, I'll be reaching out in Dallas to do that. We've got so many representatives from Austin, Houston, San Antonio, El Paso, the rest of the state, Fort Worth. Let's make that happen. Let's all of us take on the responsibility to go to our executive directors and say, hey, we've got a very important issue coming up in this April referendum. We need a spot where we can talk to the lawyers locally about this referendum. The next thing we're going to do, and this was Rada's idea at our Fort Worth board meeting, which is we as local directors communicate with our constituents. And what the bar staff's going to do is prepare kind of targeted mailings that we as local bar directors can send, for example, Director Wooten to the Austin bar, me to the Dallas bar, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, it obviously hopefully builds a connection between us as board members and our constituents, but it also will help get the word out about this important referendum. So that in essence is what we're going to be doing for the next roughly 80 days between now and April 1st. And we'll probably continue the education process during the month of April while the referendum is pending. But we need everybody's help. We all need to be ambassadors for this. It's an opportunity for all of us to drive interest in what the bar does. And that's been obviously something we've been banging our heads against the wall, trying to figure out what do we do to get people interested in what we do. This is that opportunity. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Director Toby. Are there any questions or comments from directors?
Just one comment. I know it can be somewhat.
Would you
difficult-
please,
Oh, yes.
sorry, just for the people on Zoom.
One comment, I know with these proposed disciplinary rule amendments, it can be kind of difficult to navigate all of the different components of the rule changes and the comments. If you're in a conversation with someone who wants to know more, I think directing them to the State Bar's website is an excellent thing to do, because on that website, you have all of the background information, links to the actual order with the referendum. And from what I can tell from that website, it's going to be a working process, of updating it regularly. So if you feel overwhelmed yourself at any point, this is a good thing to do to help people understand what the State Bar does for the members, to educate and provide resources, and also a good opportunity to ask anyone with whom you're conversing about these proposed rules, is there something, if there's something that's not there that you want to see that would be helpful to the process, please let us know. That's all.
This will teach me not to go completely ad hoc in the future, but there is already a dedicated website, and it's texasbar.com/rules vote. And that's dedicated to this referendum and these 12 proposals. So if you don't remember anything else, texasbar.com/rules vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Toby. Now I'll call on Director McDonald for the Administration Committee report.
Thank you, President Tisdale. The Administration Committee recently received 3 proposed rule changes from the Court Rules Committee regarding Texas Rules of Civil Procedure, rules number 10, 11, 10, 12, 14, and 44. The Administrative Committee reviewed and unanimously approved the referral of all 3 of the Court Rule Committee's proposed amendments on December 19th, 2023. Assuming that the board approves these referrals, it is important to note that there would still be an opportunity for review by the Supreme Court and its Supreme Court Advisory Committee before any changes would take place. It would ultimately be up to the Supreme Court whether to adopt a change. And if the court was considering a change, there would generally be an opportunity for public comment. The proposed changes submitted by the Court Rules Committee are included in the public meeting materials for today. Number 1, for Rule 10, the proposal amends the rule to address the need for attorneys withdrawing from representation of a corporation to include some notice requirements that include the name of a corporate representative instead of just the name of the corporate party. It also specifies the method for notice or delivery if a motion to withdraw is granted. As noted earlier, the Administrative Committee unanimously voted to recommend approval of this modification and found that the change was sensible and without any controversy. Therefore, I move that the Executive Committee approve the referral to the Court Rules Committee, proposed amendments to the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure, number 10, to the Supreme Court of Texas for consideration.
Thank you, Director McDonald. Coming from a committee, no second is needed. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Now, in the proposed amendment to Rule 12, it's revised to state that a court may sua sponte institute a hearing ordering counsel to show authority. Rule 12 is also revised to clarify when a court shall refuse to permit counsel to appear on behalf of a party and when the court shall strike the pleadings upon such a finding that counsel lacks authority. Having been unanimously approved by the Administrative Committee, I move that the Executive Committee approve the referral of the Court Rules Committee's proposed amendment to Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 12 to the Supreme Court of Texas for consideration.
Again, coming from a committee, no second is needed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
And finally, Rule 44 updates the language addressing minors and incompetent persons to use those terms, minors and incompetent persons, instead of the antiquated and offensive terms lunatics, idiots, or persons non-compos mentis. Having been previously or unanimously approved for referral by the Administrative Committee, I move that the Executive Committee approve the referral of the Court Rules Committee's proposed amendments to Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 44 to the Supreme Court of Texas for consideration.
Thank you. Coming from a committee, of course, no second is needed. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. And that concludes my report.
Sit down. At this time, we'll hear from Director Hoskins. I believe she's on Zoom for the Facilities and Equipment Subcommittee General Report. Director Hoskins.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam President. I will be presenting on behalf of the Facility and Equipment Subcommittee. As the committee reported at the September board meeting, the building which currently houses the Dallas CDC office has been under foreclosure proceedings and has recently been purchased by new owners. The new owners have informed the State Bar we need to vacate the premises by July the 1st, 2024. The current location is at the Princeton Building near the Dallas near the Dallas Tollway Road. And the State Bar has approximately 7 years before expiration of the lease. The CDC has been in the location since 2009. Our real estate firm, CBRE, assisted in conducting a RFP process to review other potential locations near the area. On November 16th, the Facility and Equipment Committee and the Administration Committee met and approved one of the proposed office locations. The proposed office is near our current location and has favorable terms for the State Bar. The State Bar is in a bit of a crunch due to the circumstances. The plan is to have the staff negotiate a lease with the prospective property owner. The committee will make a recommendation to the board at the January board meeting to authorize the executive director to negotiate and finalize the terms of the lease. Once the lease is approved, it will take approximately 3 to 5 months to build out office space to meet the needs of the CDC office. The staff has begun to work with the property owner's architect to do a test fit to design the space to meet the program requirements. The landlord is paying for the cost of the build out and is not passing those costs to the State Bar. The goal is to obtain the best value that fits the space requirements for the Dallas Regional Council office. The committee believes the property the staff have selected has accomplished that goal. The committee will report additional information at the board meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Hoskins. Are there any questions or comments from directors? Okay, seeing none, I'll call on Kellyanne Clark, Director Clark, for the ad hoc committee to select the at-large.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good morning. My name is Kellyanne Clark, and I am chair of the selection committee for the ad hoc committee to select an at-large member. There are 4 at-large director positions at the State Bar Board. At the annual meeting in June, there will be an open position, mine. My term is expiring. Please hold your grief. There is a process in the board policy to fill my position and any other position if it was at any other time. It has been my privilege and my pleasure to serve as chair of the ad hoc committee and to serve in this role as an at-large director on the State Bar Board. December 1st was the deadline to submit nominations to the State Bar. This year, there were 7 nominations received for consideration. The ad hoc committee reviewed these nominations on January 4th and determined that we would interview all of the nominees. They have exceptional experiences. They're from across the state and have different practice areas, and we feel it's appropriate to interview all of them to make sure we find the right fit for our board. The committee will conduct these interviews on February 12th here at the Law Center, and will recommend 2 nominees to present to President Cindy Tisdale for consideration. Of these 2, President Tisdale will choose 1 nominee and submit the appointment to the board for consideration at the April board meeting. This is a very competitive process. I know, I've been through it, with very well qualified nominees to consider. The quality of the nominees is extraordinary. I'm really excited to, get in and meet these people and provide President Tisdale with 2 names. They're, as I've said, they're all over the state and have unique experiences. The committee anticipates submitting very strong nominees to President Tisdale for consideration. Our committee looks forward to taking on this important task this year. The other members of our committee are Noel Hicks, Rudy Mateer, Laura Pratt, and Radha Thikajaram. I think I got that right, Radha. That concludes my report, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Clark. Are there any questions or comments, Director Clark? Okay, seeing none, I will move on to Director Buller to give the report for the section representatives to the board.
Thank you, Madam President. To maintain the spirit of brevity, I'm going to have a brief report to give everyone an update on what our sections have been up to. First, some stats. Our section membership has increased by more than 3,200 members since the last meeting in September, which brings us to a total of 86,015 members. Out of curiosity, I was wondering at this point over the past few years, were we at that same level? And there's been a steady increase in membership since the COVID year. I think it's been about a 2% change in increased membership over the last 5 years. So our sections are healthy and continuing to grow. Our Council of Chairs met on October 27th. There were 49 attendees. It was an in-person meeting here at the Texas Law Center. So we continue to have great attendance at those meetings. And somewhat of a preview of coming attractions. There's section updates that will be headed to this board for approval. The Health Law section and Public Utility Law section have submitted updated bylaws. And the Immigration and Nationality Law section has submitted a dues increase that they will request the board to approve at the January board meeting. That concludes my report, Madam President, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Director Bullard. Are there any questions or comments from directors? Thank you, Director Bullard. Next, Senior Justice Deborah Levin, of course, has an excused absence. We want to welcome Nina Hsu, who is here on her behalf, and there is no report from the Supreme Court at this time. For the Texas Access to Justice Commission, I'm just very briefly, Harriet Myers had to attend a funeral today, so she could not be here. But Ms. Myers will be giving her report to the upcoming board meeting on January 26th. For those interested in the developments about the commission's working group and its recommendations to the Supreme Court, the working group's report and materials are online at texasatj.org. Also, the December 15th commission meeting in its entirety is on the Texas Access to Justice Commission YouTube page. If you want to go watch the entire meeting, it is up on their YouTube page. So are there any questions or comments from directors about that? Thank you, and I look forward to see Ms. Myers at the next meeting. So next up, and I'm gonna call on the TYLA President, Laura Pratt, to give the TYLA report.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's my distinct honor to once again be in front of all of you and give the TYLA updates in advance of my full report to be had at our board meeting later this month. So much like our other fearless leaders, I have been very busy the last few months advancing TYLA's purpose and the mission of the State Bar of Texas all across the state. I'd like to just highlight two of those kind of events that I had the opportunity to attend for you guys this morning. First, the new lawyers induction ceremony. It will forever be one of the most memorable events I have attended in my role as president of the Texas Young Lawyers Association. And not just because I managed to quote lyrics from AC/DC in front of our 2 highest courts in Texas. In all seriousness, sometimes I think we forget how important our oath is to this profession and what a vital role all of us play in the administration of justice. And it's worth remembering and it's worth celebrating. And I think that ceremony is such a great reminder of why this room does what it does and why our board serves the important functions that it does and why bar service is so important to our profession and encouraging the new lawyers as they enter the State Bar of Texas. And so, I mean, I was proud to encourage, you know, not just our new lawyers, but also our more seasoned lawyers and just remind them how much they rock. So as indicated by President Tisdale, I was pleased to welcome the TYLA board to Lubbock for our second quarter meeting this year. That was held in November. We heard from local bar leaders. We held our committee meetings, presented updates and reports, participated in some helpful community engagement and team building activities. And all around it was just an incredible meeting. And as that's where I live and work, it was fun to share Lubbock to the rest of the TYLA board, a number of which hadn't actually ever been to Lubbock before. So it was a fun opportunity to kind of bring some of our lawyers to West Texas. One thing I want to highlight from that meeting, as you guys are aware, I'm giving Mic Drop Awards every quarter to members of my board, and our Q2 Mic Drop Award recipients were TYLA Director Allison Martinez from Laredo and TYLA Director Ashton Butcher from Dallas. And with that, our TYLA Q3 board meeting is actually happening this weekend. So I'll have 2 more names to report at our board meeting later this month. As far as project updates go, if you guys all recall, we started the year with almost 40 different projects, competitions, initiatives, things that the board is working on. So I'm proud to tell you guys that despite the necessary adjustments to the review process, most projects are still right on track. We've completed all video filming for some of our more major projects, which is always such a huge undertaking. And those new projects are actually nearing completion and should be completed either this month or next, which is exciting. Whenever possible, we continue to work with other sections and committees of the State Bar of Texas. I think that is so helpful in building connections and furthering our reach across the state and within our bar. So we've been happy to continue to pursue those things. I don't have a final count, but I will by the time of our board meeting. But the estimate that I have right now is that our board is up to over 2,000 volunteer hours to date that we have spent on furthering the mission of the State Bar of Texas. And I'm so proud of them, been so encouraged by their flexibility and patience over the past couple of months as we've kind of changed some of our review things. The spring calendar is already looking very, very full, but I'm proud of the work that the team is doing. And I'm very humbled to represent them to you all this morning. I'm available for questions, but otherwise, Madam President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, President Pratt. And it's a pleasure to be serving alongside you. Any questions or comments for President Pratt? Seeing none, next up, we're going to hear from General Counsel Ross Fisher.
Other than,
Please.
Sure. Good morning and happy new year. Other than working with in-house legal counsel and executive staff in response to the Boudreaux decision, that's been about it for me since we last convened, and that's what we've been working on, is deciphering that opinion and seeing what it means for the bar on a day-to-day basis. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Fisher? Seeing none, next we'll hear from Chris Ritter on his report from the Chief Legal Counsel. Thanks.
And at this time, I think we should go to closed session.
Okay, if there's no report for open session. Okay, no report for open session. At this time, we'll go to closed session. It is, yes, at this time, it is 11:06 a.m. and the State Bar Board of Directors Executive Committee will now recess the open meeting and reconvene in closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551.071 for the purpose of consulting with legal counsel regarding Boudreaux versus Louisiana State Bar Association, Harrison versus State Bar of Texas Insurance Trust, Turnbull versus Commission for Lawyer Discipline et al., Washington versus State Bar of Texas et al., and Yon versus State Bar of Texas et al., and legal matters related to 1415 Lavaca, and is authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551.074 to deliberate regarding personnel matters. With the exception of board liaisons and section representatives, board members, all other individuals, including non-essential staff and other guests, need to excuse themselves from the closed session. We will notify the public when we are 5 minutes out from returning to open session. It is now 11:46 a.m. and the open session of the Board of Directors Executive Committee meeting will now reconvene. I'm sorry, the Executive Committee meeting will now reconvene. I apologize. During the closed session, only matters relating to consultation with legal counsel regarding the Boudreaux versus Louisiana State Bar Association, Harrison versus State Bar of Texas Insurance Trust, Turnbull versus Commission for Lawyer Discipline et al., Washington versus State Bar of Texas et al., and Yon versus State Bar of Texas et al. Litigations were discussed. No action was taken in closed session. At this time, I would like to now adjourn the meeting of the Executive Committee. It is now 11:46 a.m. and we adjourn the meeting. For all of you that are here, lunch is set up. Please grab lunch before you head on.